Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran that He has promised those of you who have faith and do righteous deeds that He will make them surely successors in the earth. Over the last few weeks we talked about the series of what the government and what the uprising of the awaited Imam al-Mahdi will look like. And today what I want to focus on is more about the Imam's physical appearances and about his characteristics and his moral virtues. Next week I'll go on to talk about some of the miracles which is said in our narrations that the Imam will perform when he reappears, and some of the miraculous events which will take place after his reappearance, as has been told to us by our ahadith and by our narrations. But as I said, today I want to talk about the physical and the moral aspects of the Imam himself. Because as we know, we spent a couple of weeks talking about what the world would be like. We spent a couple of weeks talking about what the supporters of the Imam would look like, about how the Imam's army will look like, about what the role of women will be like in the Imam's government. But today, I want to discuss the Imam himself. The qualities and the merits of Imam al-Mahdi are said to be the same as the divine messengers which came before him in the line of prophets, for example. And some people have asked the question, is it even necessary for people to talk about what the Imam is going to look like? Is it necessary for us to talk about what his physical appearance will be like? Personally, I think this is an important topic. I think this is something important to study. It is important to look into. However, it is important that we don't obsess about what the physical appearances are, and that we don't go too far in describing what these are. And what we have to do is look at the limits, look at what is narrated in our ahadiths, and look no further. And we need to determine if these are correct or if these are not correct. Imam al-Mahdi is not only an embodiment and an important symbol in the Islamic religion, in the Islamic belief system, but he is also a symbol of aspiration. He is also a symbol of hope for all of humanity, regardless of different religious beliefs or religious denominations. He is someone who is cherished by the entirety of humanity and mankind, irrespective of different religions, because he is the end result through which all of the horrors, all of the trials, all of the tribulations of this world will come to an end. And people with their natural fitrah have come to learn and to await a day in which there will be a heavenly divine mission which comes into this earth and frees them from all of the tragedies and trials of this world. And when this happens, we will know that humanity and this world has reached its final goal. And this will be the time in which people can rest in peace and people can feel tranquility in their hearts. So, because it is the awaited Imam al-Mahdi who will bring this, it is natural that people will want to know what this man is going to look like and to know what his characteristics are, so that when he reappears, they will be able to connect with him. And during the time when he is in occultation, they can understand him more and they can understand his characteristics in anticipation for him. An important point I want to mention just before I start talking about the characteristics of the Imam, which is an important point, is that Imam al-Mahdi is already here. Imam al-Mahdi is already present in this life. And all we have to do is simply wait for that day and where the circumstances are perfect and the circumstances are right for him to reappear and for him to start his great mission on this earth. The idea of Imam al-Mahdi is no longer just something which is an idea. He is no longer just a prophecy which we read about in books. And we do not need to wait for his birth to come upon us. The Imam already exists. And the stage we are at just now is waiting for the inauguration of his role and for his reappearance into this life. And it is important that we remember that he is living amongst us in real human form, and he shares all of our hopes and our disappointments. He shares all of our happiness and our griefs. He witnesses all of the acts of oppression that take place in this world and all of the persecution in which people face, and all of the tragedies which are befallen on the people of this earth. And somehow or another, he is also affected by all of these tragedies. It is not the case that the Imam simply sits and is unaware of what happens in the world. Rather, it's the opposite. He sees everything which takes place here, and he feels the same sorrows that we feel. And it is said that the Imam is anxiously awaiting the moment when he will be able to come forward and he will be able to extend out his hand as a symbol of peace and as a rescue to mankind and to humanity for all of the things which they have suffered. And our Islamic traditions, in our books and in our narrations, they urge all of the believers, they urge all of the Muslims who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep on waiting for the Imam and not to lose hope in him and not to despair and not to feel depressed. The reason for this is that when we do this, we're able to establish a close spiritual bond between us, the believers, and between the Imam. And it is not possible to establish this link between ourselves and between Imam and Mahdi without believing that the Imam is already present in this world, without believing that he has already been born, and that he is a living personality who could be amongst us today. Now, the physical features of the Imam is a question which gets asked very often about the Imam, and in fact, amongst normal people, amongst young people especially, one of the most common things which they ask is, what does the Imam look like? And as I mentioned, we need to be careful when we talk about the appearance of the Imam and what he looks like. When I say we need to be careful, I mean we need to use a hadith which are sahih, we need to have reliable narrations which talk about the Imam, and we need to have ones which have been verified by the scholars, for example. One of the Sahaba, one of the companions of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam, asked the Imam, can you describe Imam al-Mahdi to me? Can you describe his characteristics? Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam says, certainly. Just like Ibrahim Khalilullah, Waliullah Imam al-Mahdi will be 120 years old and he will appear with a youthful, perfect 30-year-old face and visage. And when he described this hadith, Adam al-Majlisi, he says that perhaps this concept of the Imam being 120 years old, it might mean that this is the length of his government, this is the length of his rule over the world, or it could mean that that is the age in which the Imam will be, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has extended his life. And there are other hadith we have which talk about this and support this view and support this tradition. Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam, for example, says that Allah will extend the age of Imam al-Mahdi during the period of the Ghaibah, and thereafter, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's infinite power, He will let the Imam appear in the form of a young man who is younger and lesser than 40 years old. Therefore, we can see there's something miraculous even in the Imam's physical appearance, whereby Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has intervened, perhaps to extend the age of the Imam, but also to give him a younger appearance as well. And in terms of his physicality, we can see again from the traditions that we have, that once, for example, Abu Basir narrated that he said to Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam the following. He said to the Imam, I have heard from your father that Imam Sahib al-Zaman has a broad chest and has wide shoulders. And Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam replied to him. He said, Ya Abu Muhammad, my father, Imam as-Sadiq's father, tried on the armor of Rasulullah, the Holy Prophet, but it was so big for him, it was too big that it would end up touching the floor. Imam as-Sadiq says, I also put on the armor of Rasulullah, however it was even too large for me, it was too big to put on myself. However, that armor is appropriate and is fitting for Al-Qa'im just as it was for the Holy Prophet. Therefore, the same armor that Rasulullah used when he would go into battles is something which is going to fit Imam al-Mahdi. And when he commits to his battles against oppression and against tyranny, it will be that very armor, the armor of Rasulullah, that Imam al-Mahdi wears. You can also see similarities, just briefly to go on a tangent. In the Battle of Badr, for example, 313 companions of Rasulullah. And when I said that the Imam reappears, how many companions will we have? 313. So there are a lot of similarities between Rasulullah and between the awaited Imam. In terms of the armor of Rasulullah, Imam al-Rida alayhi salam comments on this, and he goes even further. He says that Al-Qa'im is the person who at the time of his coming will be of old age, but he will look young. He will have a strong and well-built body, such that if he would extend his hands toward the largest tree, then he would be able to uproot it and take it from its roots. If he shouted across the mountains, then the rocks themselves would crack and be pulled up. And he will have the staff of Musa and the ring of Sulaiman. And what we can see from these is the reality that Imam al-Mahdi is from Rasulullah, and that Imam al-Mahdi is from Amir al-Mu'mineen. These characteristics which we have described, which the Imam will have, are something we saw in Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali alayhi salam. These are things that we saw in the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And these are the things that we will also see in the narrated Imam al-Mahdi. Just like the other Ma'soom Imams, the infallible Imams, Imam al-Mahdi will have special moral excellences. He will have strong, amazing moral virtues as well. Just as the Ma'soomeen are perfect human beings who are incapable of sin, and just as they are the models and examples and role models of mankind in every single aspect, they have the most excellent morality of anyone who has stood foot on this earth. Imam al-Rida says that Imam al-Mahdi will be the most knowledgeable, he will be the most humble, and he will be the most virtuous man of his time. And out of all the men, he will be the most forgiving, he will be the most brave, and he will be the most pious. These are some of the characteristics of the Imam. These are some of the characteristics we need to try and have as well in our lives. And it is said in some of our riwayat that Imam al-Mahdi's fear of and his submissiveness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just like the submissiveness of the eagle to its two wings. An eagle, the bird, has two wings in order to help it fly. And perhaps what it is meant when this narration is told to us, the meaning of it could be that although we know eagles to be the most powerful birds, we know that they're a powerful creature, they're represented in society as very powerful animals, even though they are powerful, they depend on the assistance of its wings. Its wings are perhaps the least powerful parts about it in terms of attacking, but the eagle cannot sustain itself and be the most powerful bird without its wings. If the wings wouldn't assist the eagle in flying, then it would not even be able to lift itself off from the ground, and if it was in the air, it would fall to the ground. Similarly, although Imam al-Mahdi would be the most powerful divine leader on this earth, all of his power comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if Allah would not help the Imam even for 1 minute, then he wouldn't have any capability to do his work. If Imam al-Mahdi did not have power given to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he would not be able to be the divine leader who could establish a perfect, just government. Therefore, in facing the divine essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he has the utmost submissiveness to God. He has the utmost submissiveness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has obedience towards him and he has fear towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, these are all characteristics of the Imam which we also need to try and embody. Going back to the more physical appearances of the Imam, some people ask, what will the Imam be wearing, for example? Will he come wearing fancy, elegant clothes? Will he come wearing fancy white dresses, for example? In fact, the Imam is going to be a very humble person, and this is something which we need to pay attention to. And again, this is something we need to embody in our own lives. We need to establish this type of humility, this humbleness in our lives as well. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says that at the time when our Qa'im will stage his uprising, he will wear something similar to the clothing of Imam Ali alayhi salam, and he will also adopt the policy and the course of action as Imam Ali alayhi salam. Just as Imam al-Mahdi, will follow the same type of government as Imam Ali alayhi salam, he will also wear the exact same clothing as Imam Ali alayhi salam. Of course, this was humble clothing, modest clothing. And this is what the Imam will wear. Again, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, he once said that, would you not like me to show you the shirt which is going to be worn by Imam al-Mahdi at the time when he reappears? The people around the Imam said, yes, show us what he is going to wear. So Imam al-Sadiq goes and he brings a small chest. He places it down in front of him, and what he does is he opens it and he takes out a shirt. And on this shirt there is a blood stain on the corner of the left sleeve. Someone asked, what is this blood stain that is going to be on the clothes of the Imam? Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says that this shirt that you are looking at with the blood stain is the same shirt which Rasulullah was wearing on the day where he broke his 4 front teeth in the Battle of Uhud. He says that Al-Qa'im will stage the uprising, he will come and reappear whilst wearing this shirt of Rasulullah. And in an entirely separate and different hadith, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam goes on again about this. He continues and he says during his uprising, Imam al-Mahdi will wear the shirt that the Prophet had worn during the Battle of Uhud, as well as the Prophet's turban, as well as the Prophet's armour on his body. He will take hold of Dhul-Faqar, the 2-edged sword, the same sword of Rasulullah, the same sword as Amir al-Mu'mineen. He will unsheath that sword, and for a period of 8 months, the slain amongst the wicked people on this earth will be piled into mounds of corpses. Therefore, just to conclude, this lecture was intended to give us just a very brief explanation and an insight into the physical appearance and the moral characteristics of the Imam after his reappearance. And of course, we cannot say for sure and we cannot definitively advise what the Imam is going to look like exactly, and we can't describe all of his physical features in order for us to recognize him by looks. However, these narrations which I mentioned should provide us with enough knowledge to build on our anticipation of the reappearance of the Imam and to help us get spiritually closer to him and to form bonds with him and to form ties with him so that we can feel what he is feeling. And with the slaughter of thousands of children and thousands of women and thousands of men in Gaza, and with all of the vile bombing of Rafah, especially by the criminal Zionist entity and by their evil forces, we anxiously await the reappearance of the Imam soon. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to destroy the oppressors and to give the people of Palestine sabr and to give them ease. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant victory to all the oppressed people and to calm the minds and to calm the hearts of those innocent children who are being tortured and who are being slain whilst no one comes to their aid. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy on the shuhada, especially those who are in Gaza, especially those in Palestine, for the Hajj al-Sha'bi, and for Shaheed Sayyid Ibrahim Ra'isi and his companions, and for all of the shuhada. Please recite Surah Al-Fatiha after Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.